I'm talking about the kind of devotion to us to Robyn. She would have to adore Robyn so much that I would never, ever have to worry about whether she was competing with Robyn for my love and affection.
Where, exactly, does the truth actually reside in the twisted world of the Sister Wives? And why is Kody Brown now discussing the likelihood of a new wife, but only on terms that may astound even his most devoted followers? Suppose I told you that off the record from the TLC storylines, Kody himself has been quoted as admitting to seriously considering taking a fifth wife, provided it was in his best interests. And suppose I told you that the very terms he himself described in making this offer say more about his state of mind, his priorities, and his dysfunctional relationships with his existing wives than anything we've ever learned about him. From individuals who are close to the Browns, these talks were not mere guessing. They took place at acrimonious moments, spoken about in family conflicts, and in one instance, even recorded in paper notes that Christine herself referred to during the last few months before she departed. And now that the Sister Wives family is already broken, and the fan base more divided than ever before, the mere possibility of Kody shopping for a replacement wife under calculated conditions seems like adding gasoline to a fire. It is not speculation. This is about a man who has already lost Christine, holding on to Robyn as his one last unquestioning ally, who is estranged from Janelle, and who left Meri in the cold for more than a decade. And now, rather than mending his shattered relationships, Kody is laying down boundaries about who would come into his life next. But here is the question on every fan's mind. Is this love, or is it about control? Before we get into the secret conditions Kody himself allegedly placed, let's not forget where we started. Viewers will recall the first few seasons when Kody brashly evangelized on the virtues of plural marriage, positioning himself as a polygamous husband with boundless energy, devotion, and religious passion. But as the years went by, the cracks became glaring. Favoritism, money issues, and a growing fixation on Robyn and Now he is admitting what sources claim he has muttered all along. If he introduces another woman into the family, it won't be for companionship, or unity, or faith. It would be because she fulfilled his requirements that sources have described as chillingly transactional. This drama is still playing out. Court filings, personal accounts, and family testimony paint a picture of a patriarch trying desperately to maintain his crumbling empire, one rule at a time. And that's why you'll want to stick with me, because what I'm about to reveal goes beyond rumor. It delves into leaked exchanges, monetary interest, and a shocking portrait of a man whose sole authentic loyalty appears to be his own. Hold on a second before I reveal the explosive conditions Kody supposedly laid out for his potential new wife. Subscribe first. It is an unfolding story, and each week, new information comes out that turns everything on its head that we believed we knew about the Brown family. Now, things get particularly interesting for years now. Kody dismissed the possibility of having a fifth wife. In public, he professed that 4 wives were more than enough and that his family had achieved a spiritual completeness. But according to insiders known close to the Browns, behind the scenes he has secretly considered it, only under a very severe set of conditions that expose his true priorities. Think about that for a second. When you are married to several women, all of whom are dealing with jealousy, financial issues, and broken trust, why on earth would you even think about bringing somebody else into the picture? Unless, of course, it wasn't love at all. According to one source speaking anonymously, Kody did not discuss another wife in a romantic context. He couched it as strategy, a way to revamp the family dynamic, as he supposedly said. Someone else who is close to Christine even asserted that Kody spoke in terms of leverage when talking about what a new wife could offer the group. And here is the twist. These weren't recent thoughts. Some of these discussions are said to have begun as far back as the time when Christine was planning her departure, when Kody was already losing control of the family. Consider being one of the wives, seeing your marriage disintegrate, only to hear rumors that your husband was already establishing ground rules for someone to take your place. Sister Wives fans don't need to strain their imaginations too much to accept this. After all, we've seen favoritism play out on screen. Robyn became the clear center of attention, while Meri, Janelle, and Christine were left in various states of neglect. And yet, Kody had the audacity to suggest that adding another woman, someone who fit his terms, could somehow stabilize things. Let's be honest, for Christine, that had to feel like the final slap in the face. This was a woman who devoted decades to raising his children, preparing meals and funding the family dream, and in the end she was not even deemed irreplaceable. She was expendable, and Kody was already considering the pros and cons of someone else taking her place. Here is where emotions are raw. Consider Meri hearing this. She has already been held on the sidelines for years, hoping Kody would get his heart back together and revive what he and she once had. Instead, she finds out he'd only consider a new wife if she satisfied certain criteria Meri herself could never hope to meet. And then there is Janelle, down to earth to the extreme, who has endured Kody's abandonment, but always prized stability. To her, this must have come as validation of what she'd suspected all along, that Kody doesn't see marriage as holy, but as a game of chess where every step is about domination. So what are those notorious terms that Kody supposedly set out? What in the world was so detailed, so telling, that it irreparably changed the way fans perceive him? Stay with me, because in the next section I am going to present those conditions. And when you hear them, you'll see why insiders think this isn't so much about family and more about power. So what did Kody Brown really say about adding another wife to the mix? According to those in his inner circle, his alleged requirements weren't faith-based, compatibility-based, or even love-based. They were power-based, control-based, and image-based. And once you listen to them, you'll know why insiders and fans alike are stating that Kody's plural marriage vision has completely distorted into something unrecognizable. The first requirement: complete loyalty. Sources say Kody made it clear that any possible new wife would have to commit herself to him first and foremost, above anyone else. Not to the family, not to the children, not even to the principle of plural marriage itself. Just to him. Consider how telling that is. In the early days of Sister Wives, Kody was always speaking of family unity, of the strength that is found when wives stand in support of each other. But now his conditions reflect a total abandonment of that vision. It is no longer a family of equals. It is about raising himself as the focal point and authority figure. The second requirement was financial submission. Insiders maintain that Kody made it very clear that he would not stand for any financial autonomy from a new wife. Every check, every piece of property, every choice would come through him. If Christine and Janelle battled him on finances, if Meri insisted on autonomy, if Robyn's spending got out of hand, then the next wife would not have that kind of room to maneuver. And here is where viewers see the true Kody revealed. It is not about religion or friendship. It is about who gets to control the resources. When Christine battled for her portion, when Janelle insisted on open books, when Meri clung to her Kody shoved back. So his solution was to make sure that a possible fifth wife would never even have that level of influence to start with. The third stipulation: public image. That is right. Kody allegedly demanded that the new wife would be forced to perform her part in maintaining appearances for TLC cameras, neighbors, and church groups. In short, she'd have to conform to the image he wished the world would believe, no matter what was actually taking place behind the closed doors. Fans of the show who've been following for years know full well what that entails. The finely crafted veneer of blissful plural family life has been deteriorating for years. Christine opened it wide when she departed, Janelle validated the dysfunction, and even Meri acknowledged the emotional neglect. Kody is aware of that. And in his head, the method of fixing that image is not performing the work involved to rebuild trust, but to introduce someone new who will fill the role. It is chilling when you lay it out. These terms, absolute obedience, financial subordination, and flawless public image, don't quite ring of the basis for a marriage, and more like the qualifications for a job. And the employer is Kody Brown himself. So here is the million-dollar question. What was the reaction of the wives when they heard these so-called terms? The answers are just as dramatic as you'd expect, and they set the stage for some of the biggest confrontations the Brown family has ever faced. Stick with me, because in the next part, we'll dig into the explosive reactions from Christine, Janelle, Meri, and Robyn, and how each of them responded when they realized what Kody was really planning. When the whispers of Kody's terms reached the wives, the responses could not have been more different. Every woman, having her own history with Kody, responded in ways that demonstrate just how broken this family has actually become. Christine responded the hottest. By the time these circumstances arose, she was already gathering her emotional bags, prepared to abandon decades of frustration, but learning that Kody was setting down rules for a possible replacement wife. That was fuel on the fire for Christine. It was the ultimate affirmation that she was just a pawn on Kody's chessboard. Her sacrifices, her devotion, her years of raising his children, all for nothing if she was not willing to be at his mercy. It proved all she had been saying. Kody was not about partnership, but domination. Janelle, ever the rational one, attempted to reel it in logically, but even she could not deny the warning signs. Friends report that she rolled her eyes and brushed the entire notion off as Kody's fantasy, but deep within, she knew what it was about. A man who was allegedly all about shared faith and trust was now openly considering a blueprint for how to dominate the next phase of his life. To Janelle, this wasn't just offensive, it was proof that the plural marriage ideal they'd once embraced had completely eroded. Meri's reaction was heartbreaking. She had already been on the outside for years, clinging to the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, Kody might one day return to her. But when she heard about the conditions for a new wife, it was like a dagger to the heart. Picture yourself as the first wife, the one who began it all, and discover your husband would choose a stranger over you if she met his criteria. For Meri, this wasn't simply another rejection. It was total humiliation. And then there is Robyn. Viewers might imagine her to be outraged, threatened by the idea of Kody introducing competition. But the truth is more complex. Reports indicate that Robyn didn't object to the notion on principle. Rather, she reportedly considered it from a strategic perspective. If Kody was determined to have someone devoted to him first and foremost, then her own status as the favorite wife would be secure. So long as the new wife didn't stir the waters, Robyn had no issue being queen bee of Kody's well-planned kingdom. When you stack up these responses one on top of the other, the cracks in the family are impossible to overlook. Christine perceived betrayal, Janelle perceived manipulation, Meri perceived devastation, and Robyn, she perceived an opportunity. This is not merely a disagreement. It is an entire divergence of values, and it raises a sobering question. If the wives are this divided on something as fundamental as adding another spouse, how can they possibly maintain the illusion of family unity? In the next part, we'll dig into how these revelations weren't just personal, they had financial and legal consequences. Because when Kody makes conditions such as these, power and money are never far off. It wasn't merely the emotional shockwaves within the family. Kody's public confession of terms for accepting another wife quickly sparked a domino effect of money and legal issues no one could disregard. For years, Sister Wives viewers have sat through Kody's management, or mismanagement, of the family's finances. Several properties, trusts, banking accounts, and joint ventures were all wrapped into the fragile dynamics of his polygamous home. Now that this was revealed, the question everyone was wondering was straightforward. How would it affect the money to bring a new wife in under strict conditions? Legal observers cite that plural marriages, particularly those that are not legally sanctioned, can get ugly when it comes to disputes over finances. Each of the wives' contributions to household bills, mortgage payments, or family businesses may be called into question when a new individual is brought into the mix. Kody's terms meant not only individual authority over the new wife, but privileged access to the shared finances that could technically be construed as unjust enrichment at the expense of current wives. Christine's entourage apparently started speaking to lawyers immediately. Her lawyers wished to define her status, secure her inheritance, and prevent new arrangements being made that could be employed to cut down on her rights to marital assets. This was not simply marital politics, it was a potential legal problem. In the meantime, Janelle's strategy was deliberate. She began recording every exchange, every word, every signed check, all in case disputes over money entitlements got out of control. Friends report that she was detailed, building an airtight paper trail. Knowledge and preparation were the only means, in her opinion, of fending off Kody's controlling actions. Meri had a more vulnerable situation. Having been marginalized in earlier financial deals, she felt that Kody's terms may further jeopardize her interests. She had very little legal bargaining power, but sources report that she was quietly planning. Even if she couldn't prevent a new wife from coming, She would want to safeguard her interests financially. Robyn, on the other hand, appeared to be confident. Commentators pointed out that she seemed to know that Kody's rules could be to her advantage. She would keep her privileged status if the new wife followed his stringent conditions. But that confidence may be a double-edged sword. Any misstep, any violation of the rules, might unravel her security. What is important here is that the consequences weren't abstract, they were immediate. Lawyers were called in, bank statements were examined, and combustible arguments over property rights were front and center. Undefined, the wives were no longer acting just emotionally. They were playing a high-stakes game in which money, control, and influence all hung in the balance. And the public was watching. Undefined social media went crazy. Fans argued about whether Kody's conditions were generous, exploitative, or even manipulative. Undefined each post. Each comment mounted the pressure. Undefined's soap opera wasn't limited to secret meetings. It had become an open financial and legal spectacle with effects that would last years. Practically, the minute Kody's confession reached the headlines, the media kicked into high gear. Their headlines blared. Their social media channels blew up, and Sister Wives fan communities chattered with gossip. The news wasn't so much about family dynamics anymore. It had become a media circus. Entertainment sources were quick to label Kody's terms as salacious. Some depicted him as manipulative, controlling, or even exploitative. Others concentrated on the possible legal fallout, analyzing how a new wife coming in on special terms might upset financial planning or even cause lawsuits. Fan responses were just as heated. On such sites as Twitter and Instagram, hashtags such as #SisterWivesDrama, #Kody Brown controversy, and #new wife rules began trending within hours. Fans argued everything from morality to legality. Some rallied around Kody, saying that every family has restrictions, and his way was just more formalized. Others lambasted him bitterly, saying that putting conditions in place denigrated the independence and equality of current wives. YouTube and TikTok were fertile grounds for fan theories. One viral video analyzed Kody's past behavior with wives and speculated on who would be most impacted by the new terms. Comment sections were flooded with opinion, varying from outrage to sympathy, demonstrating just how invested the audience had become. Former family insiders and even former family friends chimed in. Anonymous sources dropped clues about secret financial disagreements, contending that Kody's terms were nothing new, simply public affirmation of what insiders had longly suspected. Each morsel intensified the drama, a feedback loop that only bred more coverage in the media. The panic wasn't confined to the web either. Talk shows, podcasts, and tabloid columns latched onto the story. Some labeled it the biggest bombshell in Sister Wives history, likening it to previous court fights, money scandals, and tearful showdowns within the clan. At the same time, the family themselves had to weather this public storm. Every wife had a two-pronged challenge: minding internal conflicts and reacting, either implicitly or explicitly, to external criticism. Christine was said to have opted to remain silent in public, but left her lawyers to field questions, while Janelle was said to be working on an official statement explaining her position. Robyn did not seem fazed at all, apparently believing that the media storm would not jeopardize her stance. The audience, feeling the pressure, began taking sides. Others rallied around the wives, cheering their strength and saying that Kody's terms were unjust. Others rallied with Kody, portraying him as a beleaguered patriarch who was attempting to hold the fort together with an intricate family setup. This split reflected the very dynamics of the family, bringing about an in-the-moment culture clash of private family norms versus public opinion. Public attention coupled with media hype made it evident the repercussions of Kody's declaration would reach far beyond the living room. This was no longer a family issue but a national spectacle weighed in the court of legality, morality, and entertainment. The closed doors at the Brown home were thick with tension. The public confession by Kody did not only rile up the fans and the media, but also opened old wounds and ensured some serious conversations among the wives. Both of them needed to very seriously think through how to preserve their interests without destroying the delicate balance of family life. Christine, being a detail-oriented person, quickly started taping the events. Sources close to her indicated that she referred to previous financial statements, legal contracts, and even previous declarations Kody made concerning family growth. She recognized that in the event of bringing on another wife on Kody's stipulated terms, serious implications could result in property, finances, and inheritance. Her approach was evident: anticipate every eventuality and protect herself legally. Janelle, however, emphasized emotional and relational strategy. She drew concern not only over the practical fallout, but also over the risk of erosion of trust within the family. Janelle was said to have summoned private meetings with the other wives so that she could establish a joint front. Her strategy was to make any vote regarding a new wife not be a shock, focusing on communication, negotiation, and leverage in family negotiations. Robyn's tactics seemed different but no less strategic. While the media depicted her as unfazed, insiders indicated that she was working behind the scenes with advisors and attorneys, making sure that her interests then and in the future would be safeguarded. Robyn's motive appeared to be hanging onto her power and status, while looking serene on the outside to the public eye. Meri, who had already had immense conflict with Kody regarding family matters, was said to feel more and more marginalized. She reportedly thought out her legal recourse, possibly contesting any new arrangements that would impact her position. Her strategy blended aggressive legal preparation with measured public statements, seeking to reduce both surprise and loss. The wives also started planning how to navigate the press. With the feeding frenzy that followed Kody's disclosure, any error could be magnified for public consumption. Personal conversations involve whether or not to make public statements, remain quiet, or have legal representatives speak. The intention was to manipulate the situation while safeguarding personal boundaries. Value strategy was also an important consideration. Prior judicial decisions and financial settlements meant that a new wife with particular conditions could reset asset balance. Some wives allegedly went back to property arrangements and financial splits in anticipation of possible ripple effects. They were juggling the practical with the emotional, making sure that the internal balance within the family wasn't thrown off too severely. Concurrently, there was also an insidious struggle for moral ground. The wives knew that public opinion could have an impact on the family's reputation, fan support, and even possible legal bargaining power. Christine and Janelle, especially, appeared determined to prove that they were reasonable, prepared, and principled, which contrasted with the contentious public position of Kody. The marriage of legality, fiscal preparedness, and emotional readiness served to foreground the complexity of life within the Brown home. Both wives had their own agenda and approach, but one thing that was common to all of them was a core issue: maintaining stability and justice in a family that is perpetually under the spotlight. Kody Brown's recent revelation about adding another wife with some conditions puzzled many viewers and critics alike. To understand the man behind the statement, insiders and family sources offered insight into his thought process, revealing a complex web of personal beliefs, family dynamics, and long-standing traditions. According to sources, Kody views the addition of a new wife as more than just a relationship choice. It's a structural decision that impacts the family's finances, living arrangements, and hierarchy. He allegedly demanded that any new possible wife would have to pass strict monetary and emotional standards, so the family would not be upset or plagued by unexpected issues. The logic behind Kody seems to stem from control and predestination. He has publicly complained about allocation of resources, specifically juggling multiple households, common assets, and the expenses of raising children throughout the family. Adding another wife under uncontrolled circumstances could, in his view, create chaos, and Kody believes his terms are designed to prevent such disruption. Yet insiders suggest there's also a psychological component. Kody reportedly fears the emotional consequences of bringing a new wife into the mix without strict agreements in place. Past experiences, including conflicts and public disputes, have made him cautious, if not defensive, about expanding the family. To him, these are terms of both protection and defense against replaying previous mishaps. Kody's view is also interestingly colored by his perception of religious and cultural beliefs. He tends to couch his decisions within a framework of fairness, responsibility, and harmony between wives and children. The conditions he imposes, insiders say, are partly a bid to bring family management in line with his own moral code, even if others criticize it as being more about holding on to personal power. But not everyone is buying Kody's portrayal of himself as a strategic player. Critics, ranging from former insiders and media observers to social commentators, say his conditions can also be interpreted as limiting personal freedom for prospective wives, while retaining his power. By dictating the terms, Kody effectively controls who can join the family and under what circumstances, raising questions about fairness, consent, and transparency. Kody's mindset also reflects his desire for legacy and order. He reportedly worries about family cohesion and the reputational impact of public disputes. Each choice, even his conditions for a fresh wife, is guided by a desire to control the public face of the family, especially with the pervasive scrutiny from media, fans, and judicial observers. Kody's presentation of his rationale as cautious and pragmatic disguises the emotional undertones. His words have reignited tensions in the household, as wives wrote privately and publicly to defend their views, push back against his assumptions, or reaffirm their own boundaries. In short, Kody's position is a combination of pragmatism, control, and personal ideology, mediated through the imperatives of family stability and public image. Whether his explanation will be embraced by his wives or supporters is not known, and the ripple effects of this confession keep unfolding at home and on the internet. Kody Brown's recent confession about not bringing on another wife under certain conditions didn't just ruffle headlines. It was an emotional maelstrom for the family. Both wives, sources close to the family said, reacted in their own unique manner, peeling back layers of tension, frustration, and in some instances, silent resignation. Christine, who is typically no holds barred about speaking her mind, apparently uttered plain frustration. She allegedly questioned Kody on the practicality and equity of doling out stringent conditions to new wives, while keeping his existing authority over the home. Friends claim Christine set her answer in terms of equity and consent, pointing out that any proposed new addition to the family must have agency, and not just do something because it is a rule given by Kody. Janelle's response, however, seemed more calculated. Although not directly confrontational, she apparently invoked the confession to restate her place in family decision, reminding Kody that the domestic arrangement impacts everyone, not him alone. Observers note that Janelle's approach reflects a measured diplomacy, choosing to challenge Kody indirectly while maintaining public composure. Meri's response was reportedly quiet but emotionally intense. She is said to have been internally processing the implications, particularly concerning the emotional well-being of the children and the potential strain a new wife could introduce. Sources suggest that Meri's concerns centered less on confrontation and more on preserving stability, highlighting the often overlooked emotional labor she performs in managing household dynamics. Robyn, often considered the most media-savvy of the group, allegedly viewed Kody's statement through a lens of public image and family optics. Sources say she was mindful of how fans and media would take Kody's ultimatum, couching her response as walking a tightrope between being supportive of her husband in public and guarding her own interests in private. Insiders point out that the emotional reactions were not one-off incidents, but only part of sustained negotiations and unspoken power struggles within the family. Kody's terms unavoidably made each of the wives consider her own standing, her limits, and her sway over choices that affect all of them. The friction has appeared in backroom conversations as well as behind-the-scenes public signaling. Social media posts, strategic interviews, and even video segments have suggested there are discrepancies, with some wives implicitly expressing opinions or implicitly disapproving. Fans have caught on to these hints, encouraging speculation and internet forums about who is on the side of or against Kody's terms. In the end, the emotional terrain makes visible a family struggling with contemporary polygamy in the spotlight. Each wife's reaction is an expression of personal interests, emotional investment, and strategic maneuvering, and reflects the inherent complexity of trying to juggle multiple relationships amidst both private and public demands. Kody Brown's declaration of only taking on another wife under certain conditions became almost immediately a lightning rod for public debate. Sister Wives fans on social media sites such as Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit sparked vehement arguments that reflected wide divisions in viewer opinion. Fans were outraged by what they perceived as Kody's controlling behavior. Fans often criticized the imposition of strict conditions on potential wives while retaining a controlling role in the family. Trending posts on Reddit quote lines such as, "It is not about love anymore. It is about control," And how can someone agree to these rules without losing their independence? Such responses reflect a prevailing concern that the show's storyline has moved from chronicling polygamy to examining power issues in the Brown family. Others, however, were defending Kody, setting his method as pragmatic and sensible. Others complained that bringing in yet another wife with undefined boundaries might upset an already complicated household. The fans supported the move by saying such things as, "At least he is considering boundaries," and "better to be honest than to repeat last season's mistakes." These responses show that fans are torn, with discussions usually revolving around functionality versus ethics. The online discourse also generated a rapid increase in memes, fan edits, and viral videos, all centering on the phrase of Kody. TikTok users, especially, have been analyzing the moment, making short videos that both satirize and comment on Brown family interactions. Hashtags number Sister Wives drama and number Kody rules quickly emerged shortly after the news, expanding the story's audience beyond regular fan communities. Influencers and commentary channels have also chimed in. Legal commentators, relationship coaches, and erstwhile reality television insiders now weigh in on YouTube and Instagram about what the terms of Kody mean, tending to interpret the situation as a textbook case study in negotiation, consent, and public accountability. These commentaries helped keep the conversation going online across several platforms. Interestingly, the fan response also revealed regional and age divides. Older audiences that have been watching the show since the initial seasons tended to couch the debate in terms of tradition and family values, whereas younger audiences centered on autonomy, consent, and equality between the genders. These differing views by generation demonstrate how the audience for the show has adapted alongside the family's own storyline. The controversy also influenced the Brown family's reputation. The viral acceptance of Kody's quote led to more media exposure, with publications not just writing about the admission itself, but also about the trickle-down effects within the family and fan base. Critics point out that while some of the attention is constructive, generating debate about the difficulties of polygamy, the majority of the coverage focuses on conflict, tension, and possible instability. The ultimate result of the online backlash has been a feedback loop, with fan responses determining how the family interacts publicly, which in turn generates further controversy. The Brown family, long accustomed to public scrutiny, now faces the additional challenge of navigating fan expectations, media interpretations, and internal dynamics simultaneously. Kody Brown's comment on only taking on another wife under specific conditions did more than get the internet talking. It sent shockwaves within the family itself. For years now, the dynamic between Kody and his existing wives, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn, have been close to the surface, both in front of and behind the cameras. Now, the possibility of a new wife under strict terms hangs over the household order. Both wives occupy clear positions in the Brown family dynamics, with one balancing tasks, power, and interpersonal relationships. Kody's announcement brought a new factor into play, a possible fifth wife with clearly established boundaries. While some wives would appreciate definitiveness so they won't get mixed signals, others will see these terms as a claim of Kody's final say. There are insiders who think that this news has heightened tensions already present. According to interviews and off-camera discussions posted by reality television pundits, it is said that Christine and Janelle, who have been so vocal about equality and fairness in the marriage, could resist any newcomer who is seen deferring to Kody's one-way rules. In the meantime, Robyn, regularly regarded as Kody's best friend, might be walking loyalty versus rivalry tightrope, juggling a well-established spot with new shifts in home authority. Meri, who repeatedly has had her place challenged within the family, might perceive Kody's conditions as threatening to her independence. Her history of public and private disagreements over financial decisions and emotional support within the family makes the idea of another wife under strict rules particularly sensitive. Family dynamics experts note that Meri's potential resistance may not only create friction, but could also influence how the other wives perceive and react to any new addition. Kody's statement has also raised questions about decision-making authority. By making public conditions, Kody has made himself the guardian of the family arrangement. This act might solidify his authority, but it will also isolate existing wives who might feel excluded in choices that have a direct impact on their home and personal lives. the power structure within polygamous households frequently hangs in the balance of influence, seniority, and respect for one another. Bringing in a new wife on clear terms upsets this equilibrium, compelling each individual to reassess their position and status. Experts explain that even small shifts in family rules can have ripple effects, influencing everything from financial conditions to emotional attachments and daily habits. In addition, the move raises the emotional stakes for everyone involved. Though Kody presents the terms as a means of safeguarding the family and keeping things in order, every wife has to contend with trust, loyalty, and self-protection. Figuring out these boundaries can be emotionally draining because wives feel compelled to comply with rules that restrict their autonomy or assault their sense of equality. Outside of intra-family dynamics, this declaration also has far-reaching consequences for how the public sees the family. Sister Wives fans have long been invested in the personalities and interactions of the existing wives. Introducing another wife, especially on strict terms, may affect how viewers perceive current relationships, actually changing the show's narrative itself. In short, Kody's public confession serves as a catalyst, putting existing tensions into high gear, emphasizing power imbalances, and challenging each family member to cope with a changing environment. How the wives react, both as individuals and as a group, will decide how cohesive the family will be and where future storylines will go. Kody Brown's latest admission that only another wife would be added on particular terms shook not just the existing wives, it also issued a clear message to anyone thinking of joining the family. For the women who may be interested in becoming a sister wife, the message is one of restriction and disclosure. Joining the Brown family comes with exclusive conditions and limits. The insiders on reality television claim Kody's conditions are probably intended to test suitability and obedience, but this begs the question of how desirable this arrangement would prove to prospective wives. Whereas some might view it as an unmistakable template providing structure and clarity, others might find it excessively controlling, restricting personal freedom and autonomy. Future wives will now have to balance the advantages of becoming part of a celebrity family against the emotional and practical hassles presented by such rules. They would not only have to deal with Kody's expectations, but also fit into a home already fraught with complicated relationships, history, and public scrutiny. The friction with the current wives is high, particularly if they have very strong feelings about equality, decision-making, and home authority. Moreover, the publicity surrounding Kody's announcement provides an additional layer of complication. Those women who would like to become part of the Brown clan would now have to face not only the personal dilemmas, but also the public scrutiny involved in joining a reality television dynasty. Any faux pas or imagined breach of Kody's conditions can lead to reputation loss, both on television and online, where the fans and critics are always watching each move keenly. Some experts opine that Kody's conditions may cover monetary expectations, loyalty terms, or conditions regarding public conduct. Although these conditions may serve to prevent conflict and keep the household in order, they may also discourage women who wish to be free, to develop autonomously, or to have a more equal marital relationship. Polygamous relationship experts identify bringing in a new member on strict terms as especially problematic. Future wives are joining a system in which roles, hierarchies, and power have already been defined. Even minor variations in personality, expectations, or communication styles can turn into conflict or resentment and make the home environment harder to deal with. Furthermore, the idea of becoming a part of a celebrity family adds pressures like media scrutiny, fan scrutiny, and social media scrutiny. Kody's conditions may be seen as a protective mechanism, but they also put burden on new wives to fit into a tight system and still hold on to their own identity and sense of agency. Finally, Kody's phrase is both an invitation and a warning. While it indicates that he wants to add to the family, it also states that entrance is conditional, selective, and limiting. Potential wives have to thoroughly consider if the Brown household fits with their individual values, aspirations, and emotional needs before becoming involved in such a complicated and public family setup. Kody Brown's statement about adding another wife under certain conditions immediately sparked a firestorm on social media. Sister Wives fans quickly weighed in with opinions ranging from support to vocal criticism. A testament to the show is polarizing cast. On Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit, viewers argued about whether Kody's stipulations were reasonable or controlling. Some fans were commending him on being open and establishing boundaries, claiming that in a polygamous family, having definitive rules helps create harmony. Finally, a bit of honesty regarding how this is done, wrote one Twitter user, pointing out a section of supporters who value openness above opacity. On the other hand, the outrage was louder and more heated. Most critics accused Kody comes across as controlling, transactional, and self-focused, hinting that his conditions may seek his comfort at the expense of the freedom and emotions of possible new wives. Memes and GIFs ridiculing the situation went viral, as fans unpacked every word of his announcement for deeper agendas. A comment on Instagram stated, "So you need to be flawless and abide by his conditions, hard pass." Discussion forum threads erupted with theories on what Kody's terms would be. Would there be monetary expectations, media limitations, or codes of conduct? Viewers expressed concern that such circumstances might make the new wives an unhealthy environment to be around and complicate relations with the current family members. Some asked if Kody's announcement was a means to control the way people think, portraying himself as thoughtful and calculated, while at the same time preventing himself from being criticized for creating chaos. Reaction YouTube channels made swift uploads of response videos, analyzing Kody's words, tone, and body language. Commentators in these videos hypothesized about the psychological and emotional effects of becoming a member of a family on such formalized terms. Some critics claimed that Kody's restrictions are a type of emotional gatekeeping aimed at sheltering him from disagreement, while others viewed it as necessary to keep the household in line in a chaotic home. Surprisingly, some avid viewers of the show sympathized with current wives, opining that Kody's declaration might be his attempt at retroactively justifying past disagreements or establishing authority in making household choices. Christine, Janelle, and Meri's posts in appreciation highlighted their strength and capability to withstand Kody's rules while keeping their own interests intact. The social media buzz also featured fan polls and arguments, and such questions as, "Would you join the Brown family with these rules?" And "Are the terms Kody gives new wives fair?" Reactions showed a polarized fan base, echoing wider social attitudes toward polygamy, independence, and power relationships in relationships. Broadly, Kody's declaration became a springboard for public debate, fueling curiosity, doubt, and alarm. Fans did not simply respond, they dissected, argued, and speculated, making a private pronouncement an international conversation. The viral nature of these discussions highlights how television, reality, and social media intersect, making the Brown family a constant topic of public fascination and scrutiny. Kody Brown's revelation about only adding another wife under certain terms isn't just a headline. It has major implications for Sister Wives and the direction of the show. Producers, writers, and editors then need to incorporate this real-life news into current storylines without letting viewers get bored and ratings dip. Lead first by creating suspense and expectation for current wives. Christine, Janelle, Meri, and Robyn are all cast members whose dialogue and behaviors now come to the fore in terms of storytelling. Producers may highlight their emotional responses, private conversations, and strategic moves, creating natural drama without fabricating events. Scenes showing the wives processing Kody's rules, debating fairness, and navigating family politics are expected to dominate upcoming episodes. Next, this development could influence future casting or storyline arcs. Any prospective new wife now has not just Kody's demands to contend with, but also the judgment of the audience and the current wives, laying the groundwork for drama, negotiation, and emotional intensity. Reality television lives on these dynamics, and the producers will certainly use every subtle conflict, compromise, and revelation to drive the highest level of engagement. The news also presents opportunities for exploring themes of autonomy, consent, and negotiation within polygamous homes. Plotlines can change to focus on how wives stand up for themselves, set boundaries, and defend their interests, adding complexity beyond the typical melodrama. That might appeal to viewers who want entertainment as well as understanding of non-traditional family units. On a production level, Kody's revelation provides editors with fresh content for teasers, trailers, and promotional spots. Moments of hesitation, discussion, and subtle reactions can be framed to hook audiences, teasing conflicts and alliances without revealing outcomes prematurely. Marketing teams are likely to capitalize on the statement with social media campaigns, fan polls, and interactive content, fueling speculation and keeping the show in the public eye. Financially, the drama around this announcement could boost viewership and subscription metrics. Dedicated viewers are already responding on social media, and occasional viewers might watch to discover how the family copes with the new situation, translating into more ad sales, streaming activity, and merchandise purchases. Lastly, Kody's honest confession can set the tone for subsequent seasons, determining storylines in terms of honesty, negotiation, and household hierarchy. While some viewers may criticize him, others may admire his transparency, creating a polarized but engaged audience that producers can leverage for storytelling. Every decision, reaction, and consequence will be amplified, keeping Sister Wives a must-watch reality series. In conclusion, Kody Brown's statement isn't just a personal boundary, it's a narrative pivot point. From audience response to production planning, the ripple impacts of this news will affect storylines, viewer participation, and tone of the show. As viewers, we're left to witness not only the personal dynamics of the Brown family, but also the complex intersection of reality, rules, and television storytelling. The Brown family's world just got even more complex, and the next seasons of Sister Wives are guaranteed to capture every moment of tension, negotiation, and drama.